Welcome to the Woman's Connection. I'm Barry Louise Switzen, your moderator. The Woman's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power on a personal or professional level. So won't you stay tuned? Welcome. I'm delighted to have our guest today. She's a multifaceted, talented performer, somebody I met years ago, and we're just hooking back up. And we're going to find out how it is to be an entertainer, a mother, and a world traveler. And I would like to welcome Roxane Butterfly. Roxane, welcome.
Thank you, dear.
So nice to have you here.
Yeah, it's been a while, huh?
It has been years.
So it's lovely to find you still doing what you do and myself trying to keep up.
Well, all right, let's talk about how do you keep up and what exactly do you do to tell the audience?
Well, I'm a tap dancer. I'm a tap dance artist, and that means that being a woman in that very special business implies that you also have to take on the task of being the manager and the producer and the promoter and the teacher and the trainer and the stage director and kind of like the whole world of being a tap dancer beyond just performing it is part of what my life is about.
How did you become a tap dancer?
I was inspired by a very special man named Jimmy Slade, who was my mentor. He passed away in 2008. So he's the one actually who gave me my stage name of Butterfly. When I met him back in New York in '91 and started performing with him at a club called La Cave on 62nd Street and First Avenue, which was a jam session he used to host on a weekly basis. And previous to that, 10 years before, as a young girl interested by the dance, I got the tremendous opportunity to see him perform in a jazz festival. Because in the south of France, we have lots of jazz festivals. So my hometown is Toulon, on the Mediterranean border, near Marseille. And we had a festival in Château Vallon, like a big hill over the city. And I just went with my parents. I went along. I was like 9 years old. And there was a big band. And all of a sudden came out a tap dancer with a big band. So for me, tap was jazz. And my first influence was really this older man, Jimmy Slade, dancing to jazz. That was my reference. So I made this kind of like a dream, no, like a hidden dream. And somehow in my heart, this is something that I always wanted to pursue. Except that in my environment, my direct environment, there was no such thing as tap dance classes in the south of France back then. So I kind of self-trained, and I grabbed on workshops. Whenever an American would come in the area, I was trying to keep myself informed. And I grabbed little bits of information here and there, practiced a lot in my home, listened to a lot of jazz music. And then when I turned 18, I took my first trip to America, fell in love with New York, and 2 years later, I decided to do the big move, and I started training, taking classes, and by coincidence, I heard that Jimmy Slade I had seen as a kid was hosting a jam session, and so I showed up, and to make a long story short, I became one of the prodigy of the master and started performing with him shortly after I showed up at the jam. So that was really my training ground. I got into the world of tap through the jazz and through the music end, really.
That's phenomenal. So you basically are self-taught, and you did all this by yourself. How did you develop it into a business? Because as a performer, you really are a business.
Artist of the 21st century, and maybe technology has a lot to see with this. The profile of people like me, artists who are also multidisciplinary, have to have become self-sufficient in that sense, because we don't really have managers or agents really I mean, for tap dancers, that does not really exist. I had to ask at times the services of music agents or contemporary modern dance agents. But tap dancers who travel with a band, who have like maybe a more conceptual mind, who have like themed workshops, it's very difficult for an agency to represent this kind of entity, this product that we have to offer, because we really have to create for ourselves our own avenue of work and our own public. No one is going to call an agent saying, well, I want a tap dance company who performs to Moroccan music. That's not going to happen. You know, so it's like you write your grants, you try to find your way through the not-for-profit world, and I was very lucky to receive, for instance, a Guggenheim Fellowship that allowed me to travel through Spain and Morocco and build relationship with artists from different environments and different worlds, really, but worlds like not only cultural worlds, geographically. And so the not-for-profit was a big outlet in my growth as an artist, what I was able to do. But previous to that, there's also the reality of having danced on the street for 7 years, partly because it took me a while to find a way to obtain my first working visa as a foreign dancer, as a foreign student and everything.
Wait a minute, what kind of a dancer?
Foreign. I was coming from abroad, so I had to work my way into being able to legally work in the US. So start by dancing on the streets. I really started from scratch, you know. But in those years, the early 90s, New York was pretty welcoming of street performers. And lots of work came out of dancing on the street. I got my first official gig in Las Vegas because I was busking on 72nd and Columbus Avenue. I got seen by a casting director, and a week later I was offered a big contract with my first official working visa, and I ended up, you know, in Las Vegas for 1 year, and that led me to later work in Los Angeles with Gregory Hines and the Nicholas Brothers. And then I really was into the circuit, I was into the system, and I managed to stay within. Created my own company in '98. It was an all-woman company called Beauties and the Beat. And so that got my name out as a choreographer, because up to then I was more perceived by my peers as a straight-up hoofer, an improviser. So I kind of like could show gradually a different side of my artistry. And then it was really about trying to write my project, find the right artists and the right musicians to work with, get money so I could afford to buy the services of a publicist, establish relationship with venues. Like I performed many years at Symphony Space on a yearly basis here in New York. I was able to develop a relationship with the Public Theatre and Joe's Pub, which is a venue that I still frequently appear at. So it was really about that, now making a name for my work, understanding where I wanted to go myself within my own identity, what I am doing in New York, my relationship to the history, how are my peers perceiving my work, and then really building relationship with venues and keeping up a mailing list.
With technology today, do you find it easier to keep in contact with all your friends? I was going to say friends from Facebook and LinkedIn, and do your publicity a lot easier?
I would say yes and no, because with technology, lots of information can be transformed. That means that at the time I started dancing, performing in New York, people heard about you not because you had a really greatly designed website, which everybody can get on a Mac, you know, today. People heard about you because you were good.
Right.
So I know from being on the internet a certain amount of time every day of my life that a lot of times I don't check what I receive. It's too many information, too many things that are being sent. So it makes you be selective, and sometimes great informations don't get to you because you just put it in, it goes into your spam, or so as you're trying to reach out by simple means, simplified by technology to a greater amount of people, maybe you do reach out to less. That's my big question, you know. Emails, I'm not sure whether they work anymore since we have Facebook, for instance. And it's so easy to speak to people on Facebook that who pays really attention to the messages? If I received a letter, it was all ritual. You have to see it. You have to open the envelope, pull out the paper. It has a smell. You look at it. Then you pin it on your fridge. It stays there. It stays under your eye. So the information, in a way, is processed in a different manner that can stay with you longer. So the great thing is you can discover about the work of other artists who are very far. You can rehearse with other people in Brazil, for instance, on Skype. You know, you can. So there is a great side, and there's another side that I'm not so sure about. You know, I used to be a lot more social before I had an email. Email makes it easy to just be home and communicate, or instant message. You know, we used to make the effort to travel downtown to see our friends, because you know, it was either the telephone or sending a letter. So we used to make a certain type of effort, and there was a different depth to the human connection. So now I think you can have access to a lot more people, but somehow it's more impersonal.
I agree with you with the fact that it is more impersonal, but the world is getting faster and faster. Now, you also live in 2 different countries. You are French. You are living in Barcelona. You have a daughter, so she was born in Barcelona, and you live in New York. How do you see the cultures mingling or different?
You know, it's for many years, as a New Yorker, because I've been living here for 20 years now, which is most of my adult life, each time I would take a trip, mostly to go on tour in Europe, whether it was France or Spain or Greece or Italy, this is Europe. Europe is my home. It's like a continent, like America is a continent, and it's my home. I used to always feel, you know, torn up coming back to the US, because somehow my home was Europe. But now that I live in Europe, and all my cultural references as far as being a tap dancer are not really what people relate with. I relate with the food, I relate with the culture and the lifestyle, but as an artist, there's like a whole range of me that is kind of in the dark, that I don't express to the extent that I express myself here. So I'm always relieved. I come back to New York, which was the place of my being a foreign self, and I feel like I'm a fish in water. So it's very strange. It's like this duality. I love waking up in the morning in Spain and walking on the street, and it's always sunny, and I can get my croissant and my little café au lait. You know, it's not France, but it's still the Mediterranean. You know, I'm still very close to my home, being the southern France. But then I go to a studio and I teach my tap class, and people don't know jazz. So you know, I really feel like when I go back to New York after being away for a few months, I reactivate Roxane Butterfly as I left her frozen somewhere in a fridge, you know. So time stops when I leave something else somewhere else, and then I come back here, and it's like, of course, things have kept going, and my friends are not in town anymore, or there's a new building, and I feel so awkward because I take time back to where I left it. So it's like, it's a very interesting relationship to time, because Then I go back to Europe. I go back to Spain, and my daughter has missed like 1 month of school, so she has to catch up, you know. And so it's also in her rhythm, or having to catch up with the rhythm of being a child going to school, and that I realize, oh my God, I really live in a different life, in a different timeline here.
You're talking about being a mother, being an entertainer, a world traveler. So you're juggling a lot of balls. And then your daughter has to be in school. Does she go to? She doesn't go to private school, or?
Well, she's still very young. I mean, she goes to. We call it school because it's the same organization as schools, public schools in Spain. But in fact, it's a kindergarten because she's only 2 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like a school, and she has up to. She can miss basically 20 days a month. Before they tell her she's not allowed in the school anymore, because then she takes the spot for someone else. So each time I go on tour, it has to be like 19 days because then I jeopardize my child's future. And I really want her, she's just getting to be 2, very soon. So up to these 2 years, I was really able to take her everywhere because she has no flying fee. She can be on a plane with me, and it's totally free. So we went to many countries, and that allowed me to breastfeed, between workshops and backstage, and it's been quite an adventure. Now it's becoming more difficult to have her on the gigs with me because she's walking around and she wants to participate. The first year was easier because she could just sleep somewhere, and I had her backstage. Like the first time I came to New York, I remember I bought like a little cushion, like you put the dogs in, because I had no bed or anything, and so she was there between the drum set and the piano player sleeping. So that was easy. There were situations in France, for instance, at a very big National Theatre. I'm like, where am I going to leave her? So I had my little baby cart, and I put her inside of like the technician's booth for the time of the show, but she wasn't sleeping at the beginning and she was crying. So I did my first piece, which was a blues, with my baby in my arm. And then I walked backstage and I put her in the thing. She was sleeping. She fell asleep in my arm on stage. So situations are really, you have to go with the flow. And I was always worried about the idea of having a child because I thought I would have to stop basically what I do. And then the child was here, and the only thing that I know to do is my dancing. That's my life. That's the only way I've ever lived. So I just took my child all along, and she had to adapt, and we figured out ways.
Give us one example of her adapting when she's sleeping, but now that she's older, does she speak multiple languages, or does she just speak Spanish, French, English?
Her father is from Cameroon.
Okay.
So his native idiom is Bamileke. So he speaks to her in French and English because Cameroon is also a country which was divided. So it's both Anglophone and Francophone. So that's the 2 languages I speak. So she hears French, English, then Bamileke, and then Spanish, and then Catalan, because Catalan is what they speak in all the public facilities, including the one that she has her activities at, kindergarten and so forth. So she's growing up hearing a lot of languages, lots of music, lots of dancing, and they say that a child does not pick up on any accent before they're 10 years old. That's when, after that time, it's when culture really starts leaving its marks. And so that's where it reflects itself in the accent that we speak, in which we speak. So, hey, as long as the brain is fresh, this is information. They can speak up to 7 languages easily.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow. She's a multicultural, multi-traveled. She could be a diplomat.
Totally. It's true. I think she's going to speak probably more Catalan and French because this is what's really the most on a daily basis, really like in her ears at all times. I speak French to her. I really make the commitment to be like unidirectional linguistically with her, so she's not too confused, but she does hear me speak English to other people. She does hear me speak Spanish to other people, but to her, my relationship to my daughter is in French, because the family from her father's side and from my side is francophone. So if anything happens to either of her parents, then with the rest of her family, she can communicate, you know.
How do you see your business, your career, your talent transforming and moving?
It's been a challenge because I really made the statement of wanting to enjoy having a baby for the first year. So I gave myself a lot of time to just be with her. And but I have to say, it's been a very difficult year because unfortunately I was not able to obtain any form of help from the Spanish government for being a foreign person just recently arrived there. That's not the country where I paid my taxes. I paid my taxes 20 years in the US, so I didn't benefit from any form of help. And my business was on a big low, had lower incredibly, because Spain has been very, very badly hit by the crisis. And so I'm a tap dancer in Spain. I arrived there because of a Guggenheim fellowship I received. And then in the process of working in Spain, well, that baby came along, so I stayed. But I didn't have a business plan for Spain. So I had a child, and then I had to restart a career in a new country. So, and a country that is very badly run, where the culture is very badly handled by, I mean, the cultural policy is not the greatest at the moment in Spain. People are the culture, and they're amazing. I mean, flamenco is stunning. There's a lot of good things, but as far as being well paid, this is not a culture that pay the artist. So there I am with my New York standard, and I'm used to work fast. I'm used to people who know jazz. Then I speak about a tap dancer like Gregory Hines or Stephen Glover, and everybody knows who I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, people have never seen a pair of tap shoes in their life, so I'm invited to teach tap in all these schools because, of course, I have an amazing curriculum, biography, and I send my bio to a school, and, of course, they want to hire me, but then no student register because no one knows what tap is. So that's been very difficult. I had to really start everything from scratch. And meanwhile, the time I spent with my child, I did not spend doing my managing. And managing has been a good 75% of my professional life. The rest has been the practicing, the teaching, and the performing. But managing, being a manager, is what got me the gigs. So whatever my talent is, without my managing skills, I would have never done anything with my talent.
How did you manage to learn your managing skills?
You know, it's just like I see a theater, I see my show in there. Okay, so getting in there. How much does that cost to run the theater? Okay, this one is a black box theater, $300 a day. Okay, how can I get $300 a day? So dancing on the street, teaching my classes. Okay, and how many days can I get to save up my money? I really studied like this. And then how do I get the word out? Okay, who is doing a show this week? I'm going to go make my flyers and go and give flyers to the people there. This is like pre-email time. So I was just like all over the city, showing up at jam sessions, going, teaching, making friends with musicians, with other artists, and dancing on the streets, having always my little stack of flyers. Even people had, at a time, for making fun of me tenderly, would call me Roxane Butterfly, because I was always the girl who had a flyer about something, you know? And then people would come. So I also was lucky that we were few people of my generation dancing. Like, there's many more dancers now than the ones from the 40 to 50. generation, which is my generation, we were less people, but at the same time we were very tight. So we helped each other a lot. If somebody had a show, we would all go support the show, and the masters would come along and show us their support by coming and jamming at the end with our big finale. Like Jimmy Slade would show up all the time. Gregory Hines showed up at many of my little gigs, you know. I had a very small gig in whatever blues cafe somewhere, and everybody in TAP would know about it because I had everybody's phone number. I was just very active. I just had the energy to put into making myself be known. And New York allowed me to do that because you know one person and then it's like a snowball. And if you have a talent, people get a kick out of it. They want to be a part of it, so people come, and all of a sudden there's this big movement around you. So, and then it was about really, you know, keeping up a mailing list, and we used to do everything. We used to glue stamps and go to the post office, and it was just like, you know, pre-email time. And then early 2000, everything started to change because we had computers. And for the first 5 years, it did become a lot easier and a lot cheaper because everybody was communicating through the internet. So, but then I feel like now this has worn out. The Facebook phenomenon is real, and I'm just learning really how to navigate with this new tool, basically Facebook, Twitter. I don't know, I really don't know what's gonna happen now. I'm living off my resource being the circuit I've always been, I have been able to establish till now, but I really come to a point where I really need a manager. I really need a manager now. I was able to do without up to now because I was able to manage myself, but it's becoming a necessity to really delegate now the function. So I'm looking for that. You know, I'm putting my head into looking for someone to really take on, and I'm ready to delegate. I've always wanted to do it myself because I thought I would be better served by myself, but it's like, now if I can have someone qualified, that would be, yes, I would not say no to that.
Well, it's like any business. As you grow, you need to start delegating so you can grow even more. So who knows, somebody watching the show will call you and say, Roxane,
hey,
I'm a manager.
Hey, that would be lovely. That would be really lovely.
Roxane, you were saying that many of the performers tap dance into 90, 92, 98.
Absolutely.
What is the key to longevity then?
I think that when you tap, first of all, it's I call it the discipline of being relaxed, because if there is any tension in your body, then the sound is not going to come out, because you need to have like total ease. It's like really the art of being cool. So unlike other dance forms where you have to really lock in everything, you know, and stretch and ask efforts that sometimes physically are not natural to the body, tap is really the one thing you do with what your body allows you to do. So you can basically do it all your life, you know. So and there's also a question of being in tune with your own breathing. I was a cross-country runner myself for many years, and it really helped me keeping time, because it's an art where you cannot hide behind a move. You have to be on time to sustain the rhythm. So just producing consciously a movement on time makes you be in tune with your breathing. So you have to breathe on time, and that's healthy.
Now, before you start tap dancing, you have to do certain exercises. Mm-hmm. What are some of the exercises? Well,
you know, you have to stretch a little bit your ankles both ways, you know. This, yeah, you know, so that's always good for your joints. Right. And then what I do is I stretch my knees like this.
Oh, we got a lot of stretching to do here.
A little bit, you know, and then you know, I of course I have to, you know, to pull my my head up and down. Very important is this, you know, a little twist of the back spine here. And then my mentor, Jimmy Slade, was a very trained golfer. He played golf, you know, so all these movements here. So he would tell me, look, you know, the best way to stretch for tap is this one, up. And at 80 years old, he would say, hey, do you see that? So
I'll get out of your way here.
So I'm stretching like this a lot, you know.
Right.
So then, you know, your body is like, you know, a little bit warmer, and you can relax the knee and the ankles to get a sound that we call a shuffle, which is a movement of doing a brush front and a brush back, and you get the swing of a drummer. Ta-da, da-de, da-de, da-da, da-de, 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 da. And then you have like a little...
We're losing. Okay, go ahead.
And a similar sound to the shuffle would be the flap. So it's like the action of walking. And you always have to be on your toes and be very relaxed when you land, yeah? So I'm walking, and just before I land, I'm catching a little kick with my front toe. So imagine like you're jumping on a rope, and just when you land, you grab a little sound on the way with your toe here. And this, combined with a shuffle, is really good for your knee, your ankle, and then you can play around with your heels and with your toes. So you don't have to jump a lot. It's more like laterals, and really that articulation of the step, the toes into the heel.
How many hours a day do you practice?
When I started dancing, to get to a very good level soon, which I wanted to do, I think I was quite exceptional because I practiced at least 5-6 hours a day, often 8 hours a day, but that included also taking classes and jamming. But, you know, I had for a good 8 hours in a day my tap shoes, and that lasted a couple of years. Then, you know, you teach, you perform. The practice time gets limited to 3 hours a day, but you're still dancing 8 hours a day because you are performing, you are auditioning, so you are in the mode of dancing. But the conscious practice where, as an artist, you develop your craft and your style and your research, I always try to keep it up to at least 2-3 hours a day. And I've been able to do that till last year. But with my child growing, it's just getting smaller. So I block months, like for the holidays, and I just, those are moments where I catch up and I just do that. You know, I lock myself at my parents' country house, and I put my daughter in my mother's arm, and I said, I'm going to practice for 8 hours now. See you later, you know. And but I guess it's important to practice a lot when you come up as an artist, and then your knowledge is there. It's just a matter of maintaining and keeping inspired and motivated by watching other people work. And the training is on a different level after a while.
In the closing moments of the show, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I would like to leave the audience with this big dream that I have, this big, beautiful project that is bringing a lot of people together. It's a show that we created in Spain in February this year called Tap Experience. And it truly is an experience because we're bringing different musical culture together. It's a cast of international artists, international musicians, and I'm really taking a journey with tap dancing. There is a whole exploration of the feet, dancing barefoot, finding a shoe without taps, and then finding a tap shoe, and then finding music and all kinds of different music, and how all that transforms into a person aware of the world through dance, basically, and the encountering with different people. So that's a show called Tap Experience that you can get to see in our website, tapexperience.com. And this is really something that I would love to present to many people in many different countries. We're just at the beginning of the adventure, and that's what I want the people to know. This is where Roxane Butterfly is at right now with that big show called Tap Experience.
That's fantastic. And what about you? How are you tapping these days? Love to see your sample. Write us here at the Women's Connection. Love to hear from you. Bye now. Can you zero in on her feet? I'm starting out. What do I have to do? What's the best thing for me to do after I've warmed up?
So you want to think of your heels as your bass drum. So it's a big round sound, and you're completely relaxed. And then you want to think one at a time. See, the right, the left, you alternate. And then you want to think of your toes as your hi-hat. So it's a high sound. So you have two sounds here. You have doom, doom, tack, tack, doom, doom, tack, tack, doom, doom, tack, tack. You have two heels, two toes. It's always right, left, right, left. And here, you really get to meet your floor. That's it.
I'm trying to keep up with you. I'm not quite. Okay,
so that's your heel and your toe. And then the next step is the step. It's just the action of stepping over without putting the heels down. You're like you're walking without wanting to wake up your parents. Exactly. Because you came out at night and you weren't supposed to, so you don't want to make too much noise, yeah? And then, so you alternate a step and a heel. Step, heel. You're just marking the beat, really. Step, heel. That's it. Step, heel. Step, heel, step, heel, step, heel, step, heel. And when you're done with that, you want to give a little brush with the S, this is it, and back. So it's a little nervous here, it's a little dry. Tack, 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 tack. Brush front, brush back. And when you put these two together in a swing, you're doing what a drummer would do. Ting, 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 on the cymbal. So that's called a shuffle. Front, back, front, back, front, back. Da-da, that's it. That's it. That's it.
Look, Mom, tapping.
Yes, that's it. And you're swinging.
Oh, I'm swinging. Getting tired of the one foot. All right, so then we do the other foot.
That's it. So think the first one is front. And one. And two. Out, in. That's it. Ah. Da-da, da-di, da-di, do-da. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to go from one foot to the next, so you're going to go da 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 da, and you have triplets, 1 and 2. See, you go shuffle step.
Okay,